Welcome to Focus On. Now, Africa's health sector is on the rise with growing local manufacturing, stronger partnerships, and a renewed push to harmonize medical product regulations across Africa. Now, this year, the 7th Scientific Conference on Medical Products Regulation in Africa brings together key policymakers, scientists, and regulators together here in Mombasa, Kenya, under the theme Regulatory Harmonization, Unlocking Africa's Potential in Health Product Manufacturing and Trade. Now, to help us unpack what this means for Africa's health security and regional integration, I'm now joined by Gary Johnson, Director of Human Capital and Institutional Social Development.
We're really showcasing the importance of Africa prioritizing the harmonization of regulation of medical products and related products in the medical ecosystem. The reason that is, some 20 years ago, Africa decided that we needed to prioritize the manufacturing of medical products. So there was the PMPA program. And 4 years after that, it was realized that we needed to start a discussion on a possible program that will ensure that our various national regulatory authorities were capacitated enough so that we can build a supranational continental agency called the Africa Medicines Agency. So today, you will hear throughout the meeting today and tomorrow here in Mombasa that the Africa Medicines Agency is alive. It has a Director General, and this is because of the hard work of the African Union Development Agency in the past 16 years through the Africa Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Program. So now that we have a supranational regulatory agency, we have 32 countries that are part of the AMRH process. All 7 regional economic communities are part of it, except one. It goes to show that as a continent we are serious, because without a harmonized regulation of safe medical products, you will not be able to have local manufacturing or regional manufacturing of local products. So regulation is imperative for us to really manufacture our own medicines and vaccines so that we can trade it under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
Great insights there. Now, when we look at the policy side, what are the key policies that you think the different governments across Africa should embrace towards driving this agenda on the African continent?
You know, a typical African government will not appreciate that the health economy could be a growth point for its economy. Because it seems in a typical policymaker, perhaps myself included some 5 years ago before I took over this portfolio, that the health economy or health in general is a consumption. You just get money from the fiscus, the treasury has to allocate it. It should be solved by the donor agencies or the North or the developmental agency or the World Bank should have some sort of a package for the country. So it is only recently that we are now unpacking the potential for the health economy to grow our economies, not only nationally, but continentally. And of course, through regional approaches, because it has to have a regional dimension. So government policy, the same policies that are being used to invite financial institutions into our countries, to make sure that the work we're doing on infrastructure, build, operate, and transfer, making sure that tourism, all these beautiful investment policies should also align with really stimulating the health economy as a growth potential. So there should be a deliberate effort, and this is what we are trying to do with PIFA, that we meet with the ministers of finance, ministers of industry, ministers of labor, and the sector minister, which is the Minister of Health and Social Welfare, to really unpack that we have an opportunity here. Health can be profitable. We can have more money in health and more health for the money coming from government, public sector, but we can also have other forms of new money that will allow us to do this big investment that Africa needs. So it's a policy shift, but recognizing that there is a health economy, and it's not a consumption economy, but it's a production economy.
All right, before I let you go off the screens of CNBC Africa, I'd love to pick on what does success look like for you on your side in the future towards, of course, deciding about harmonization on the African continent, and if yes, what effect does harmonization bring?
Well, in harmonization takes effect, which it has to, because we are now at 31, 32 now, just 32 announced today. So the remaining countries in the 55 member state of the African Union also have to come on board and harmonize and, of course, ratify the AMA Treaty. If all of that happens and we strengthen our national regulatory authorities at the country level, we also work with the regional economic communities, and eventually by 2050, we have those figures, the 99% and the 80 and 90% all drop, hopefully to 10 and 15 or 0%. It changes the game, because across the value chain, imagine the jobs that need to be created. As I told you, 1 in 3 youth in the world will be African. We will have close to 1 billion young Africans between the ages of 15 and 35 that need jobs, that need training, human capital. It will solve most of our problems on this continent if we expand on this health economy. Because in 25 years, it's not a long time. It took us 20 years just to get here. 20 years to establish AMA. We wanted to do local production, we didn't. We had to go through setting up AMRH, then AMA. Now we are working with AMA to do local production. 25 years is not a long time. So and I keep saying it, that it's not that we have the luxury of an option. We don't. Because imagine what will happen if 1 in 3 able-bodied person in 2050 lives on this continent and they don't have a job and they're sick and they're not educated. I mean, it's not good for business. It's not good for the private sector. So we really have to make sure that government will do its part, set up the policies, the enabling environment, give the tax holidays or whatever the government of the day in the particular country wants to do to incentivize private capital. But the notion of exporting to Africa and letting Africa import its medical products and its vaccines is not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. There has to be a solution to this, because it's not good. It's not looking good for us as Africans and as a people.
Up next is John Munyo, chairperson of Kenya's Pharmacy and Poisons Board, helping us discuss his policies and the vision he holds for the health sector.
This is a very important conference for the African continent, and particularly from medical products regulatory point of view. We are 55 member states in Africa, and each of the 55 member states have their own regulatory authorities. They have their own procedures, and they do things their own way. And I think the significance of this particular event we are holding is that today we made a critical milestone when we have transited from the area initiative that was trying to bring harmonization and collaboration within the regulatory aspects of medical products in Africa, and we have now transitioned to Africa Medicines Agency, AMA, that will more or less be like the super regulatory authority of Africa, have said in quotes. And this is important because when we have fragmented regulatory authorities in Africa, 55 of them, we lose a lot in terms of harnessing our skills, our experiences, our synergies, such that a product manufactured in South Africa can only be used in South Africa, a product manufactured in Egypt can only be used in Egypt. By taking the steps that we have taken and the transition we have transitioned to the Africa Medicines Agency, which will more or less take the role of the Central Medicines Agency for Africa, we are breaking down those silos, the fragmented regulatory authorities of Africa, Not that we are removing them, but harmonizing them to work together as connected regulatory authorities through the facilitation of African Medicines Agency, so that we can really facilitate intra-African trade. And by that I mean a product manufactured in South Africa will be easily accepted in Kenya, will be accepted in DRC, will be accepted in Libya, and vice versa. And that will really promote Pan-African trade.
The AMA initiative has been a big part of improving the regulatory medicine on the African continent. What's your take on that, the scale? How do you rank that?
In terms of where we are today with AMA, having transitioned from the previous harmonization and collaboration platform, I think what we need to do very quickly is for the member states to fully rally behind AMA. As we sit here today, I'm not quite sure of the exact number, but I think 29 member states have ratified the treaty. We still have another 31 or thereabout years to do it. And among them, and excuse me, I'm just trying to mention among them the major ones. Nigeria, South Africa are yet to ratify. And for AMA to be successful and for the impact of AMA to be felt within the African continent, and for AMA to achieve the objectives for which it has been put into place, we need all the 55 member states to support AMA, to rally behind AMA, and particularly the big players in the continent. We are talking about Nigeria, we are talking about Egypt, we are talking about South Africa. And as of now, we still have waiting for Nigeria to get on board. We are still waiting for South Africa on board. So the very next critical steps to be able to strengthen AMA and to get AMA to deliver its promise is to get all the 55 member states to ratify, and particularly so the big ones who already have a well-established medical products industry, the ones that I mentioned. I think that's what we need. That would be the immediate next steps that we would require to make AMA start working and to give it the strength and the momentum that it requires.
Insightful perspectives there on the balance between innovation, regulation, and public health in Africa's evolving landscape of health. You have been with me, Derek Mohaji.